And does it, you touched on it there, but the fact that the proxies are so diminished, the likes of Hezbollah, so degraded by the events of recent months that they just have got no teeth, no firepower to fight back. Is that basically what we're seeing here?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is Netanyahu. You know, he has a lot of quirks to his personality and a lot of scar tissue, and he's good and bad, like Trump. But he is a very formidable leader. He might be the most formidable leader the Middle East has seen for 100 years or something. He has completely transformed the Middle East. The Israelis suffered a big failure and terrible event on October 7, and since then he has systematically destroyed all of Iran's proxies, the so-called Shiite Ring of Fire. The Iranians used to boast that they had 6 armies between them and Israel, and Netanyahu has taken them out one after another. Hamas can't launch attacks on Israel. Hezbollah is tremendously diminished and doesn't seem to have any spirit for the fight anymore. The Syrian regime has collapsed altogether. The Houthis can still fire missiles, but virtually none of them get through to Israel, and they've taken big hits. And now he's wiped out probably more than half of Iran's missile capacity and done enormous damage to its nuclear facilities. Now, there's still a couple of unanswered questions. Did he get the stockpile of uranium enriched to 60%, 400 kilograms of which the Iranians were supposed to have held? And the final thing Netanyahu has done is he got American backing, not only tacit backing, but active backing. He got the Americans to participate in the strike with him. So you have to virtually say that's Netanyahu 10, the bad guys 0.
On the legality question, Macron says there's not a legal framework, but then says France supports the objective. I guess the question that many US supporters of Trump and Israelis, and I think even our government by its position supporting this measure, would argue that there is a legal backing either through the basis of collective defence, which is legal under the UN Charter, but also more broadly, this is a country that has been a state sponsor of terrorism, Iran, for many years, Greg.
You're absolutely right, Kieran. So there are many bases under which these actions are illegal. One is that if you are in a conflict, you're allowed to fight back. And Iran has been attacking Israel and the United States constantly for 20 years. Now, Israel, oddly enough, has a much stronger justification even than the United States. But I must say, Kieran, I hate to keep beating up on the Albanese government, but I think its position is bizarre and implausible here. It says it backs the action. Now, I asked the government, would it back an illegal action? Presumably not. And the government says, no, it wouldn't back an illegal action, but it won't say that the US action is legal. Now, if it backs the US action, why did it not back identical Israeli actions against identical targets? And if it backs the US action, it has to say the US action is legal. Otherwise, logically, the government is backing an illegal action, and therefore the government no longer thinks international law has any consequence. Now, I think international law is wildly overrated and very fuzzy and unclear, and it has no jurisdiction and very little legitimacy. But there are certainly bases under which you can argue that this is legal. But Albanese, Penny Wong and Richard Marles have all said the government backs the action, and then they've been asked, is the action legal? And they won't give a straight answer. And now this is the Albanese government to a T. It's kind of trying to appease the Green Left vote, but trying to stick with the alliance. It's scared of the Americans. It's not scared of the Israelis, so it could treat the Israelis with some contempt. But once the Americans do it, it's got to fall in line and support it. But it lacks either the courage of its convictions to support it properly, and it lacks the courage of its lack of convictions to oppose it properly. So I don't think the Australian government has ever been more comprehensively irrelevant than it is today.
Greg Sheridan, we appreciate your thoughts as always. Look forward to chatting to you next week.